Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tanapano Premamritam Manidhi Dhira
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksuran Militan Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stavidan Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Karamaya Didanti Swapadanti Kam. First of all, I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Diksha and Shiksha Guru, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asatarasata Sisimad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Then I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asatarasata Sisimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha Gurus, Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharti Goswami Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna Bhagavan, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, unto Sri Arjuna, the hearer of Bhagavad Gita, unto Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of all the acharyas who have written commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, Srila Sridhar Swamipad, Sri Ramanujacharya, Sri Madhvacharya, Srila Baladev Vijabhushan, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I offer my humble obeisances to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. My Dandavat Pranam. Jai. So, today we begin the final chapter of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18. We have gone through the first 3 sections of Bhagavad Gita, the first 6 chapters, first section of Bhagavad Gita. There's 3 sections, and we've gone through the first section, which is the first 6 chapters, which is Nishkam Karma Yoga, as explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We have also gone through the middle 6 chapters on Bhakti Yoga, and we are now finishing the last 6 chapters on Jnana Yoga. As we will see from Srila Prabhupada's purport, essentially the Gita is finished in 17 chapters. The 18th chapter is a review, and at the same time, the question, the 16th question, we've been following the 16 questions of Arjuna, which drive the narrative of the Bhagavad Gita, as explained in the 54th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Gita in the purport of Srila Narayan Maharaj. It's explained here how, in this 18th chapter, the 16th question, okay, what is the purpose of sannyas? This is an important question because now what is going to happen is Sri Krishna and the commentators are going to get an opportunity to explain who's really a sannyasi. Okay. What is the position of a sannyasi? That is a sannyasi someone who actually takes the renounced order, or is it a frame of mind, consciousness? And that's what's going to be discussed here, and then what the activities of a sannyasi are. And it's important, this question is important to Arjuna because he's talked about leaving the battlefield and taking sannyas and renouncing everything. And He's asked this question before. First you tell me to give up the fruit of my work, then you tell me to engage in activities with devotion, so I'm confused. What exactly is it that you want from me? So he wants a final confirmation from Krishna about the nature of sannyas and renunciation, so that he can understand what his duty is. Krishna has been telling him from time to time throughout the Gita, understanding what I have explained to you, now pick up your sword and fight, O Arjuna, because this is your dharma and this is your service. Now, Krishna is going to explain in detail how Arjuna, fighting the battle of Kurukshetra, is actually being a sannyasi, how it's perfect renunciation. So the 16th question that drives the narrative, the last question, Arjuna vacha sannyasasya mahabaho tadvam michami veditam Tyagasya cha rishi kesha pritak keshi nisudana. O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and the renounced order of life, sannyas, O killer of the Keshi demon, Rishikesh. Of course, again, he's using this, Prabhupada says, Arjuna requests him to summarize everything in such a way that he can remain equiposed. Yet he has some doubts, and doubts are always compared to demons. He therefore addresses Krishna as Keshi Nisudana. Keshi was a most formidable demon who was killed by the Lord. Now Arjuna is expecting Krishna to kill the demons of his doubts. So this is the important meaning of the word Keshi Nisudana in this verse. Also, Rishikesh, Prabhupada says this is another significant word. Rishikesh is Krishna, who is the master of all the senses, who can always help us attain mental serenity. Arjuna requests him to summarize everything in such a way that he can remain equiposed and control his senses and engage them in the service of Krishna. So now Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the beginning of this purport that in fact, actually the Bhagavad Gita is finished in 17 chapters. The 18th chapter is a supplementary summarization. At the beginning of this, I told you that the 18th chapter summarizes the Gita. So here Prabhupada is confirming this point, that it is a supplementary summarization of the topics discussed before. Now, in every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna stresses that devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. This same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential path of knowledge. In the first 6 chapters, stress was given to devotional service. At the end of the 6th chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmanam Shadavan bhajate yomam same yuktattamo mata. Of all yogis or transcendentalists, one who thinks of me within himself in devotion is the best. So Prabhupada quotes that verse here at the end of the 6th chapter as showing that the final statement of the first 6 chapters is Bhakti Yoga, surrendering in Bhakti Yoga. In the next 6 chapters, pure devotional service and its nature and activity were discussed. Notice how he makes the distinction. Okay, he makes the distinction that stress was given to devotional service in the first 6, but pure devotional service is discussed in the middle 6. So he himself makes the distinction. He's not going into the details of how it is Nishkam, Karma, Prabhuti, Bandha Yoga, etc., etc. He doesn't give these details because we weren't. People in general, the general public who reads this would only become confused by all the Sanskrit statements and minute divisions of the nature of devotional service. So he simply says devotional service is discussed in the first 6, and pure devotional service is discussed in the middle 6. In the third 6 chapters, knowledge, renunciation, the activities of material nature and transcendental nature in devotional service are described. Gyan Yoga, as spoken by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It was concluded that all acts should be performed in conjunction with the Supreme Lord, summarized by the words Om Tat Sat, which indicate Vishnu, the Supreme Person. In the third part of the Bhagavad Gita, devotional service was established by the example of past acharyas and the Brahma Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra, which cites that devotional service is the ultimate purpose of life and nothing else. So here, again, Srila Prabhupada is always bringing in the authority of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra, and all the other texts in order to establish that the Gita and the process of bhakti are on a firm footing within the scheme of the Vedic culture and the Vedic teachings in all of the Vedic literatures. Certain impersonalists consider themselves monopolizers of the knowledge of Vedanta Sutra, but actually, the Vedanta Sutra is meant for understanding devotional service, for the Lord himself is the composer of the Vedanta Sutra, and he is its knower. Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham. Krishna says, Vedaischa Saver Aham Meva Vedu, by all the Vedas I am to be known. Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva Chaham. I am the knower of the Vedas, and I am the compiler of the Vedas. That is described in the 15th chapter. That's 15th chapter, verse number 7, I think. No, not, no, not 7. 15, 13, I think. And that is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Now, as in the second chapter, second half of the second chapter, a synopsis of the whole subject matter was described. Similarly, in the 18th chapter, the summary of all instructions is given. So he's showing. Krishna starts out instructing Arjuna with an overall synopsis, and he ends by instructing Arjuna with an overall synopsis. So we see how the thread of the Gita functions, okay? The purpose of life is indicated to be renunciation and attainment of the transcendental position above the 3 modes of nature. Arjuna wants to clarify the 2 distinct subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, namely renunciation and the renounced order of life. Thus, he is asking the meaning of these 2 words. Now, take a look at what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has to say about this verse. This chapter describes the following subjects: the 3 types of sannyas, jnana, and karma, the conclusive understanding of mukti, and then the most confidential essence of Bhagavad Gita. In the previous chapter, Sri Bhagavan said, after becoming free from all material desires, those who seek moksha perform various types of yajna, giving in charity, and engage in penances while uttering the word tat. Sri Bhagavan uses the word moksha kankshi, a seeker of moksha, in this statement to indicate the sannyasi only. But if this word refers to someone other than the sannyasi, then who is that person? Sri Bhagavan said in Gita, 12th chapter, 11th verse, Sarva karma phala tyagam tata karu yatat mavam. Being situated in the self, you should engage in your prescribed duties, renouncing the fruit of action. Arjuna is now inquiring. The word sarva karma phala tyagam refer to tyaga, renunciation. I wish to know about the symptoms of a tyagi, renunciate. I also want to know about the symptoms of a sannyasi, the renounced order of life, that are found in sannyasis, those who have formally taken the renounced order. Arjuna is inquisitive and intelligent, and he spoke this sloka beginning with sannyasya in order to understand those topics clearly. Arjuna has used the word pritak to mean if sannyas and tyag have different meanings, then I wish to know their true separate natures. Even if they have the same meaning in your opinion, or in the opinion of others, I still wish to understand the difference between the two. So, also, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he comments on Keshini Sudana and Rishikesha, but then he quotes, he comments on Mahabaho, because Arjuna uses that word, sannyasya Mahabaho, O mighty armed one. He says, O Mahabaho, you are supremely powerful, where I have a minute amount of power. I have a friendly relationship with you because we have some similar qualities, but my qualities cannot equal your qualities, such as omniscience. I am only able to ask you this question without hesitation because you have bestowed upon me a little of your Sakyabhav. So here you see how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur brings in Rasa Tattva into the conversation to help us understand the depths of the relationship that is being expressed here in the questions. Here also, Srila Narayana Maharaj makes the point, in some parts of the Gita, Bhagavan Sri Krishna has given instructions pertaining to karma sannyas, the renunciation of activities. And in other parts, he has instructed Arjuna not to completely abandon karma or action, but to renounce the desire for the fruits of all type of karma. We have made this point. Now, Srila Narayana Maharaj is showing this is the essence of the point that is being made here. From a superficial perspective, there seems to be a contradiction between the two instructions. Arjuna wants Krishna to remove the doubts of people whose intelligence is mundane. So, he is asking these questions about the real meaning of Tyag and Sannyas, about the difference between them, and about their unique characteristics. So, then he also makes the same points about Keshini Shudana, Rishikesha, Mahabaho, etc. So, this is the hidden meaning behind the three terms of address. If, like Arjuna, a person surrenders to Bhagavan and prays to him for transcendental knowledge, prema bhakti, then Sri Bhagavan will surely fulfill his desire. Now we see where Krishna takes these questions of Arjuna about renunciation and sannyas. Sri Bhagavan uvacha kamyanam karma namnyasam sannyasam kavayo vidu sarva karma phalatyagam prabhustyagam vichakshana. The Supreme Lord said, to give up the results of all activities is called renunciation, tyag, by the wise. And that state is called the renounced order of life, sannyas, by great learned men. So he begins by giving a definition. This is the definition. This is what renunciation means. This is what sannyas means. Renunciation means giving up the results of all the activities, not the activities themselves, but the results of the activities. And that state is called the renounced order by great learned men. In other words, you are a sannyasi when you give up the results of your activities, not that you give up activities altogether. Because in some teachings of the Vedic literature, the conception or the idea is given by the Mayavadis that the sannyasi does nothing. He simply studies Vedanta and he worships Brahma. This is the conception that is given. But Krishna is saying that that's not correct. He's saying to give up the results of all activities is called renunciation. And that state, when you give up the results of your activities, is called a renounced order or sannyas. So now you're going to see how Krishna is going to explain the true meaning of sannyas and renunciation as he has laid it out here in the next verses coming up. The performance of activities for results has to be given up, Srila Prabhupada says. This is the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. But activities leading to advanced knowledge are not to be given up. This will be made clear in the next verse. Tyagam dosavad ityeke karma prahur manishina yagna dana tapa karma natyagyam iti chappare. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up. But there are yet other sages who maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. So we read here in the beginning of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary where he says that in this chapter, 3 types of sannyas, gyan, and karma are going to be explained. The conclusive understanding of mukti and the most confidential essence of bhakti will also be described. So now Krishna is talking about these things. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, karma. But there are yet other sages who maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance, which are actions, should never be abandoned. So now the description. There are many activities in Vedic literatures which are subjects of contention. For instance, it is said that an animal can be killed in a sacrifice, yet some maintain animal killing is completely abominable. Although animal killing in a sacrifice is recommended in the Vedic literature, the animal is not considered to be killed. The sacrifice is to give new life to the animal. Sometimes the animal is given a new life after being killed in the sacrifices, and sometimes the animal is promoted immediately to the human form of life. So this sacrifice is called the Ashwamedha and the Gomedha. In this yajna, there are many Brahmins have to be present. They recite hundreds of Vedic mantras. All of them have to recite the mantras simultaneously without an error, even in a single syllable. And then when the animal is sacrificed, at the end, they will do the mantras again, and when they do the new mantras, the animal will rise from the dead, his life will be restored, and the horse will come back to life, or the cow will come back to life. This is what the Ashwamedha and the Gomedha sacrifice is about. And that's the story that's in reference to the carrots, the red carrots, and the red lentils, and the garlic and the onions. And one Brahmin was doing a Gomedha sacrifice, and his wife had a Sudrani as a servant, a maidservant. So the Sudrani had sometimes eaten cow flesh. And the wife, the Brahmini, she was pregnant. So being pregnant and her hormones racing in all different directions, she became unable to make a proper distinction about what to eat or what not to eat. So when the Sudrani said, "Oh, your husband's doing Gomedha today," So when the cow dies, if he can get some flesh, if you've ever eaten cow flesh, very tasty, very tasty. So she influenced her that it's okay because this is a legal sacrifice of the animal. So therefore you wouldn't be committing any sin to eat the flesh of the animal from this legal sacrifice. So, of course, the husband did not want to do this, but the wife was crying and, please, please, I want to taste cow flesh, please. It's not a sin because you're doing the legal sacrifice. Okay. So when all the Brahmins left the arena after the cow was sacrificed, before they came back for the next section of the ceremony, in which they would recite the mantras to revive the life of the cow, he cut out 2 ribs and then brought it home and gave it to his wife. Then when he came back and they recited the mantras and the cow came back to life, everyone saw that it was missing 2 ribs. So when they saw that the 2 ribs were missing, they started to accuse, who did this? Who did that? Who came? Some assistant of the yajna must have come to take out the ribs. Everything is spoiled. It's improper. And so there was a big conflagration. So he was nervous. So he rushes home and he takes the ribs and he runs to the forest and he digs a hole and he buries them. So he buries the ribs with the flesh in the forest. And then 4 things grew up from those ribs: garlic, onions, red lentils, and red carrots. So the garlic, I think it comes from the bones. The onions come from the marrow. The red lentils come from the bones. The garlic comes from the muscle. The onions come from the marrow. And the red carrots come from the blood. That's what they say. Something like that. I may have that part of it a little wrong, but 4 things come up from 4 different things: the flesh, the blood, the bones, and the marrow. So these things are not eaten. However, the orange carrots, from my understanding, are different, because Srila Prabhupada cooked them for us. He taught us how to make carrot halva. I personally cook carrots for Prabhupada in India. I know devotees who cook carrots for Prabhupada in America, and then he cooked it in America. He showed us how to make carrot halva. So he always ate the orange carrots. So I don't know what to say. Some people have some dispute about this. I noticed today I ate the carrots. I didn't eat the pepper. I forget that the red peppers are nightshades. So I ate red peppers every day for 3 days. Then my legs were hurting. So today I ate the carrots as the doctor ordered me to eat, and not the peppers, and my legs don't hurt now. So no more peppers. Take all the peppers over here. All right. Now Krishna says in the next verse, now animal is given new life. But there are different opinions among the sages. Some say that animal killing should always be avoided, and others say that for a specific sacrifice it is good. All these different opinions on sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord himself. So when it comes to these sacrificial activities, another way to understand or look at it, because there will be people that will quote, well, it says in the Shiva Purana or the Durga Purana that we can sacrifice the goat, or we can do this, or we can do that. And so people will argue that the different Puranas have express different meanings. But if you understand how the Puranas are constructed for dealing with different classes of people according to the modes of material nature, then you understand why there are different instructions given in different Puranas, because they're addressing people in the modes of ignorance, passion, or goodness. So the persons who are in the mode of ignorance, have a tendency in the mode of darkness to not follow any principles or rules or regulations. They just eat anything, have sex anytime, drink or any kind of intoxication, take any kind of intoxication. They have no rules. They have no principles. So in the 6 puranas that are in the teaching persons how to elevate themselves from the modes of ignorance to the modes of passion, rules are given. Okay, you want to eat animal flesh, then you perform this yajna by which you sacrifice the goat. When you're sacrificing the goat, then you say to the goat one mantra. I'm killing you now in this life, then I'm going to eat you, then in the next life you're going to kill me, and you're going to eat me. Like this, it's supposed to wake up the consciousness of the person that he's implicating himself in a cycle of karma. That he's a human, then he's a goat, then he's a human, then he's a goat, that there's some implication. But it regulates the behavior. It's not just wholesale animal slaughter. Some yajna is done with a view to enlighten the person about the implications of karma that are involved in the activities he's performing. Similarly, there's a yajna for offering wine to Durga, and then drinking, and again, mantras are chanted. I know that this is not proper behavior. I shouldn't be drinking this, but I'm offering it to you. You drink it first, then I will drink. Or to have illicit relations with some woman I know that I shouldn't be having like this, but I love her, she loves me, so we're saying some prayers or mantras like this. They have different things or that they follow, or there is the injunctions for marriage. Okay, you marry. The only real injunction for a Sudra is that he should marry. He should have a legal relationship with a wife. So like this, the Puranas in the mode of ignorance give some instructions for people in ignorance to come at least to the platform of passion. Then there's 6 Puranas that teach a person to go from passion to goodness. Okay, you're making sacrifices, good. Now change the quality of the sacrifice, how you perform it, what you do. Okay. And then in the 6 Puranas that take one from goodness to Shuddhasattva, like Padma Purana or Vishnu Purana and the Bhagavad Purana, then we see that all these sacrifices are given a different nuance altogether. That only things should be offered, like Krishna says in the Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. We offer only fruits, flowers, leaves, and water with love and devotion. In this way, we purify our consciousness because Krishna accepts these things and they become purified, and then we get prasadam. And by eating prasadam, then we get good brain substance, and then with good brain tissue, we can understand bhakti. O best of the Bharats, hear from me now about renunciation. O tiger among men, there are 3 kinds of renunciation declared in the scriptures. So he's explaining here in the beginning of the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there are 3 kinds of sannyas, gyan, and karma. So now Krishna is going to explain 3 types of renunciation. Although there are differences of opinions about renunciation, here the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, gives his judgment, which should be taken as final. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So here, Prabhupada talks about in the purport, the yogi should perform acts for the advancement of human society. There's one verse, I think it's in this chapter, the sannyasi is not one who lights no fire, does no work, and lights no fire. So He's making the point here. We should not give these up. We should not give up sacrifice, charity, and penance. Prabhupada makes the point that a sannyasi is not supposed to associate with women. Should a sannyasi, the marriage ceremony, for example, is considered to be one of these sacrifices. It is called Vivaha Yagya. Should a sannyasi who is in the renounced order of life, who has given up his family relations, encourage the marriage ceremony? The Lord says here that any sacrifice which is meant for human welfare should never be given up. And Srila Prabhupada used to perform the marriage ceremony for his disciples in the beginning because they needed to be married. He was a sannyasi, but he wasn't giving up these acts of sacrifice. He was engaging them in Krishna's service. Okay, you want to engage in Krishna's service, you should be married, you serve Krishna as a team. And then he did the fire yagya. So, Vivaha Yagya, the marriage ceremony, is meant to regulate the human mind to become peaceful for spiritual advancement. For most men, this Vivaha Yagya should be encouraged. For most men, the Vivaha Yagya should be encouraged even by persons in the renounced order of life. Sannyasi should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stages of life, a young man, should not accept a wife in the marriage ceremony. All prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leaves one to advance spiritual life. So here Prabhupada lays it out in the purport. He acted in that way himself. He used to perform the fire yagyas for his young disciples. And Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj also performed fire yagya for his young Western disciples to get married, because here it is written. And Prabhupada did it, so he followed Srila Prabhupada. So this is the process. All these activities should be performed without any expectation of result. This is the key. The key is not expecting a result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up, but sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. Hence he performed Vivaha Yagya for his young Western disciples so that they should be married and peacefully execute Krishna consciousness together as a team. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice, or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service. Prescribed duties, Krishna says, should never be renounced. If by illusion one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. The work for material satisfaction must not be given up, but activities which promote one to spiritual activity, like cooking for the Supreme Lord and offering the food to the Lord and then accepting the food, are recommended. It is said that a person in the renounced order of life should not cook for himself. Cooking for oneself is prohibited, but cooking for the Supreme Lord is not prohibited. Similarly, a sannyasi may perform a marriage ceremony to help his disciple in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. If one renounces such activities, it is to be understood that he is acting in the mode of ignorance. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear is said to be in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. One who is in Krishna consciousness should not give up earning money out of fear that he is performing fruitive activities. If by working one can engage his money in Krishna consciousness, or by rising early in the morning one can advance his transcendental Krishna consciousness, one should not desist out of fear or because such activities are considered troublesome. Such renunciation is in the mode of passion. But he who performs his prescribed duty only because it ought to be done and renounces all attachments to the fruit, his renunciation is of the nature of goodness, O Arjuna. So here we see that Krishna, based on the modes of material nature, is defining what is renunciation, what is sacrifice, what is charity. This is the way to understand whether you're making the proper decisions when you're trying to make advancement in your Krishna consciousness. Well, I want to give this up. It's troublesome. No, that's passion. That's passion. In the mode of goodness, you perform your prescribed duty because it ought to be done and renounce all attachment to the fruit. This is renunciation in the nature of goodness. So therefore, we should understand it properly. Prescribed duties must be performed with this mentality. It's consciousness. What is your consciousness when you're doing your duty? One should act without attachment for the result. He should be disassociated from the modes of work. A man working in Krishna consciousness in a factory does not associate himself with the work of the factory, nor with the workers of the factory. He simply works for Krishna. And when he gives up the result for Krishna, he is acting transcendentally. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness, who neither hate inauspicious work nor are attached to auspicious work, have no doubts about work. We see here in this temple, very practical. People have different inclinations. Sridham Prabhu, he likes working with his hands, he likes doing mechanical things, so he's engaged in that way. And Yasomati Sutta Prabhu, he likes doing brain work, so he's doing editing and other things like that. And the ladies enjoy cooking for Krishna and offering the prasadam to the deity, so they are engaged in that. So in this way, everyone is engaged according to their inclination, according to their talents and abilities. This is work in the mode of goodness. Sadananda Prabhu has a business, and he makes money, and he maintains the deity here. He offers the fruit of his work to take care of the deity and to provide a place for Vaishnavas to do devotional service. So this is sannyas. This is proper renunciation. He's giving up the fruit of his work to serve Krishna, all for the benefit of Krishna. So this is the proper mood. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness, who neither hate inauspicious work nor are attached to auspicious work, have no doubts about work. They know that all work that is used in the service of Krishna is proper renunciation. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities. Therefore, it is said that he who renounces the fruits of action is one who has truly renounced. True renunciation means to give up the fruit, to not expect anything, to expect that whatever is being used in Krishna's service is to his benefit and the benefit of all others. Prabhupada says in the purport, a person in Krishna consciousness acting in knowledge of his relationship with Krishna is always liberated. Therefore, he does not have to enjoy or suffer the results of his acts after death. For one who is not renounced, the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such results to suffer or enjoy. So a person who's in Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says, or in the mode of goodness, does not hate anyone or anything which troubles his body. He does work in the proper place and at the proper time, without fearing the troublesome effects of his duty. Such a person situated in transcendence should be understood to be most intelligent and beyond all doubts in his activities. O mighty armed Arjuna, learn from me of the 5 factors which bring about the accomplishment of all actions. And now Krishna is going to lay out everything according to Sankhya Yoga. Because Sankhya Yoga is the process of analyzing the difference between matter and spirit and who is the controller of both. So again, Krishna will go to Sankhya as he discussed in the 2nd chapter, Sankhya, and then Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. These 5 factors are declared in Sankhya philosophy to be the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. So a question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that the person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reaction of work? The Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. He says that there are 5 causes for all activities and for success in all activity, and one should know these 5 causes. Sankhya means the stalk of knowledge, and Vedanta is the final stalk of knowledge accepted by all leading acharyas. Even Shankaracharya accepts Vedanta Sutra as such. Therefore, such authority should be consulted. The ultimate will is invested in the Supersoul, as it is stated in the Gita, Sarvasya Chaham Ridishanavishto, that I am situated in everyone's heart, and I give knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Also in the 13th chapter, Upadrashta Anumantacha, I am the overseer and I am the permitter. Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. Paramatmeti Chapiyukto, Dehismin Purushapara. I am the other enjoyer in the body and I'm overseeing all of your activities and I'm permitting them. Why? Because I am in everyone's heart and I give knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So Krishna is giving this information to us in Bhagavad Gita. He is engaging everyone in certain activities. Acts done under his direction from within yield no reaction, either in this life or in the life after death. The instruments of action are the senses, okay? So, first he's talking about the place of action. So to give an example, the kitchen. That's the place of action. The performer. Today the performers were myself and Kanak Manjari. The senses. We both engaged our senses in preparing the prasadam for Krishna. The endeavor. That was the endeavor. The endeavor was to cook something to offer to Krishna. And ultimately the Supersoul, who was overseeing our desire to perform the activity, giving us permission to perform the activity, giving us the knowledge to perform the activity, and the remembrance of how to use our senses to engage in his service. So the instruments of action are the senses, and by the senses the soul acts in various ways. And for each and every action there is a different endeavor. But all one's activities depend on the will of the Supersoul, who is seated within the heart as a friend. The Supreme Lord is the super cause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of Supersoul situated within the heart is naturally not bound by any activity. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. Everything is dependent on the supreme will, the super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors: the place of action, the performer, the senses, the supersoul, and the endeavor. These 5 things. Okay? The words right and wrong are very significant in this verse. Right work is work done in terms of the prescribed directions in the scriptures, and wrong work is done against the principles of scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these 5 factors for its complete performance. If you are performing things according to the rules and regulations of Scripture, you need these 5 things: the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and the supersoul. The supersoul is overseeing your desires. Upadrashta. I'm the overseer. Anumanta. And I give permission, depending on your desire. You want to eat prasadam, you want to cook and offer the prasadam to Krishna, I arrange. I give you the knowledge, the remembrance. And if you want to eat animal flesh, then I give you forgetfulness. You forget that I am God. You forget that I am the Supreme Personality and that you're supposed to offer everything to me. So then you go and you eat animal flesh. You kill the animals. You take intoxication. You do these sinful things. Why? I help you to forget me so that you can commit your sinful activities. Because I'm Upadrashta Anumanta, I'm the overseer and the permitter, so I permit you to forget me. But you will have to pay. You are responsible for your actions. You have chosen this forgetfulness. So now, reaction will come. This is the laws of nature. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. And it's very important. A foolish man cannot understand that the supersoul is sitting as a friend within and conducting his actions. Although the material causes are the place, the worker, the endeavor, and the senses, the final cause is the supreme, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should see not only the 4 material causes, but the supreme efficient cause as well. One who does not see the supreme thinks himself to be the instrument. Now, Krishna takes it to another level. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, is not the slayer, nor is he bound by the actions. So this is a very important verse, because now Krishna is bringing Arjuna around to the proper consciousness. Arjuna starts off the Gita by saying, the Vedic injunctions instruct me not to kill, not to destroy the elders of society, the people that we worship, the father, the grandsire, the guru, etc. Because if they're killed, then the women are not protected. And then the women will be forced into illicit activities and produce unwanted population. So like this, Arjuna gives all of his arguments, saying that I don't want the kingdom anymore. What is the use of this kingdom? Rather, I will, if they come at me, I will throw down my arms and I will turn the other cheek. He gives all these religious and sub-religious principles of the Vedas as to why he's not going to fight the battle. He's not taking into consideration that Krishna has repeatedly asked Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra to make peace with the Pandavas, to cooperate, to work together. He's not giving this conception at all. He's thinking only in terms of his false ego. False ego means what? That the soul, which is emanating consciousness, the consciousness is being expressed through the subtle body, headed by the false ego, which has been covered by the soul has been covered by the 5 forms of ignorance, plus this false egotistical identification. And so the false ego is expressing, I want what's good for my body, my false egotistical conception, who I am, who I think I am, who I conceive myself to be. What is the conception that Arjuna has? It's based on the body. These are my relatives. How are they your relatives? They're your relatives in this body. In a previous body, they were not your relatives. In the next body, they won't be your relatives again. The example is given of the ocean and the straws. They come together and then they come apart. But like this, we come together, we come apart. We come together, we come apart. It happens. This is the laws of nature. Just like in the story of the son of Srivas Thakur, who dies. And when Mahaprabhu brings him back to life, he says, which father, which mother, which parent? I've had so many fathers and mothers. So many. There's a story in the Bhagavatam, same thing. The king loses his son, then the son comes back to life by the mercy of Narada Muni. Which parents? Which father and mother? I had so many. I will have so many more. Which one? This is the understanding. So the false ego means Arjuna is thinking, these are my friends, my relatives, my elders, my this, my that, my the other thing. One who's motivated, not motivated by false ego. If you're not motivated by false ego, by the false egotistical conception that I am this body and these things and these persons are related to me, they're mine in some way because of my body. So, if you're not in that, under that illusion, and whose intelligence is not entangled. Why Prabhupada is saying intelligence here? Because intelligence is right next to the soul. Prabhupada used to say like that. Intelligence is right next to the soul. Why? Because the soul, the intelligence, is that which discriminates. That which discriminates between matter and spirit and the controller of both. So the intelligence, which is in the mode of goodness, can see these things, can understand these things properly. Therefore, he's saying, Krishna is saying, if you're not motivated by false ego under the bodily conception like Arjuna was in the beginning of this conversation, and your intelligence is not entangled in trying to understand how to enjoy your senses, but is rather discriminating between matter and spirit and the controller of both, and trying to understand the ultimate goal of action, then, though he kills men in this world, he is not the slayer. Why? Because he is not bound by his actions when he's not acting under false ego or an entangled intelligence. In this verse, the Lord informs Arjuna that the desire not to fight arises from false ego. Arjuna thought himself to be the doer of action. I'm the doer. I'm the one killing. He's not killing. Arjuna sees this in the 11th chapter. You've killed everyone. They're all going into your mouths. You've already decided the end of this. And Krishna tells him, yes, except for you, the 5 Pandavas, all others will die on this battlefield today. I have consumed them. So you are not the doer of action. But he did not consider the supreme sanction within and without. If one does not know that the super sanction is there, why should he act? But one who knows the instrument of work himself is the worker, and the Supreme Lord is the supreme sanctioner. Upadrashta anumantacha, I'm the overseer, I'm the permitter. I'm the one who's sanctioning your actions. One who knows the instrument of work. If one does not know that a super sanction is there, why should he act? But one who knows the instrument of work, himself is the worker and the Supreme Lord is the supreme sanctioner, is perfect in doing everything. Such a person is never in illusion. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or a lack of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though killing, he does not kill. Nor is he ever affected by the reaction of such killing. When a soldier kills under the command of a superior officer, he is not subject to be judged. But if the soldier kills on his own personal account, he is certainly judged by a court of law. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the 3 factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer comprise the 3-fold basis of action. Here, based on Gyan, knowledge, okay, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about how Krishna is going to explain the 3 forms of renunciation and the 3 forms of knowledge. Now Krishna is describing knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the 3 factors which motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer comprise the 3-fold basis of action, karma. There are 3 kinds of impetus for daily work: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. The instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker are called the constituents of work. Any work done by any human being has these elements. Before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized is a subtle form of work. Then work takes the form of action. Prabhupada talks about this in other places, how the conception of thinking, feeling, and willing, that action begins in the mind, where you think about how to execute the work. Krishna talks about this in the 2nd chapter, Dhyayato Vishaya Pumsam, meditating on the objects of the senses is giving impetus to act. You understand? It starts here and descends. Everything begins here and descends. First, one has to undergo the psychological process of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that is called impetus. Actually, the faith to perform acts is called knowledge. The inspiration to work is the same if it comes from the scripture or from the instruction of the spiritual master. When the inspiration is there and the worker is there, then actual activity takes place by the help of the senses. The mind is the center of all senses, and the object is work itself. These are the different phases of work as described in Bhagavad Gita. The sum total of all activities is called the accumulation of work. Let's see what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has to say in this regard. Hence, in the opinion of Sri Bhagavan, sannyas in the form of renunciation in sattva gun is instructed for the jnanis. But for bhaktas, complete renunciation of karma yoga is recommended. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.32, Sri Bhagavan says, O Uddhava, those who have carefully analyzed the positive and negative aspects of dharma and adharma, acts which are performed in relationship to the scripture and acts which are performed against the authority of scripture, adharma, but give up their svadharma prescribed by me in the Vedas to engage in bhajan to me, are indeed sattama, the best among men. So we're going to see at the end of this 18th chapter, Krishna is going to say, Sarva dharmam parityaja, give up all kinds of dharma and surrender unto me. Mame kam saranam braja, come to me, surrender unto me. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo, don't worry. Moksha yashami masu, you will be liberated from all your sinful reactions, I promise. Don't worry. Srila Sridhar Swamipad has explained the meaning of this sloka as follows. Those who perform bhajan to me, completely giving up their swadharma, as instructed by me in the Vedas, are sattama, the best. Here a question arises, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Sridhar Swamipad. If someone gives up prescribed swadharma out of ignorance or an atheistic propensity, will he still be considered sattama? In response, Sri Bhagavan says, no. Those are sattama, who are sattama, understand that favorable qualities such as purity of existence resulting from the performance of dharmic activities, prescribed duties according to varna and ashram, and discrepancies caused by the neglect of such activities, distract one from meditating upon me. Those who understand this are sattama. They possess the firm determination that everything can be achieved by performing bhakti to me, and they solely engage in bhajan to me, giving up all other dharmic activities. So this verse is forecasting, setting up sarva dharma parityaja. It's setting up the point. And the commentary here is making the point that if a prescribed duty, according to varna and ashram, causes a discrepancy by the neglect of such activities to distract one from meditating upon me, those who understand this are sattama. So Arjuna made the arguments in the beginning. The Vedas say thou shalt not kill. The Vedas say you shouldn't kill your elders. The Vedas say you shouldn't desire a kingdom. The Vedas say this, the Vedas say that, the Vedas, the Vedas, the Vedas. All the religious and sub-religious principles based on varna and ashrama. Therefore, I'm giving all this up. I'm giving up this fight because I'm accepting the varna and ashram instructions in the Vedas. But one who understands that distracts him from his real duty in bhajan to him. Remember, why Krishna is structuring this entire thing in the first place. He wants there should be no excuses. Everyone will have an excuse. Oh, I can't do bhajan to Krishna because I have this duty. I have that duty. I have this responsibility. It's too hard. It's too difficult. It's a problem. This. Arjuna is fighting on the battlefield and killing his relatives and thinking of Krishna with love. There is no obstruction to pure bhakti. Nothing can interfere with the execution of pure devotional service. One who's focused on doing his service to Krishna will find that there is nothing that can obstruct him. We see Srila Prabhupada. He took all obstacles as a way, a means by which to achieve the ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness, not just for himself, because he was already Krishna conscious, but for fulfilling the order of his guru and for creating a situation by which millions and even billions of people will be able to come to the process of Krishna consciousness. The words dharmam santyagya in the Srimad Bhagavatam sloka quoted above, 11.11.32, does not mean to give up the results of dharma, but to give up dharma itself. Sarva dharmam parityajya. One should understand that there is no discrepancy involved in giving up the results of dharma. This opinion is given in the statements of Sri Bhagavan and is supported by those who have explained those statements. Jnana certainly requires purification of the heart. The performance of nishkam karma enables one to achieve different levels of such purification, and jnana arises in proportion to the degree that the heart is purified. As we engage in service to the lotus feet of Sri Guru, with the intent to give up the fruits of our action and to satisfy him, to satisfy Krishna, to that degree, transcendental knowledge is acquired. Tadvidi paripratena pariprashnena sevaya. By service to Gurudev, your questions will be answered. Srila Bharti Maharaj talking about how Vaishnav Seva is the means by which Hari Katha is realized in the heart. I posted this on Facebook. One should understand that there is no discrepancy involved. The performance of Nishkam Karma Jnana arises. There is no other way for Gyan to appear. Therefore, it is imperative for even the sannyasis to practice Nishkam Karma for complete Gyan to appear in their hearts. When the performance of karma has completely purified the heart, at that time karma is no longer required. As it is also said in the Gita, karma is the sadhana for those who desire Gyan Yoga. But for those who are already situated in the stage of Gyan, the means is renunciation of this karma as it causes a distraction. That's in Gita 6.3. However, Gita 3.17 says, there is no prescribed karma for those who derive pleasure from the self and who are satisfied and happy in the self alone. Bhakti is supremely independent and extremely powerful. It does not depend upon purity of the heart. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.33-39 states, those who with transcendental faith hear Sri Krishna's pastimes with the gopis of Braj attain parabhakti to him and thus very quickly become free from the disease of the heart, which is mundane lust. How can this happen? First, parabhakti enters into the heart of a person who is suffering from material lust and purifies it. Consequently, the lust and anarthas of such a qualified person are destroyed. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.5 further states, Krishna enters into the lotus-like hearts of the bhaktas through the ear and removes all their impurities, just as the autumn season purifies the rivers. Srila Prabhupada gave us Krishna book so we could meditate on these pastimes, all of the pastimes. They should all be meditated upon. Not that we should only meditate on the creation Leela, Yes, we should meditate on that. That's important. That's Sankhya. We should know that. But we should meditate on all the Leelas. Here it is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Prabhupada told, I am giving you Krishna book. When he gave us Nectar of Devotion, in the back portions of Nectar of Devotion, there are many intimate discussions of how Krishna paints dolphins on the breasts of Radharani and about different activities and pastimes between Krishna and Radha. What did Prabhupada tell us when he gave us that book? He said, you can read it from any part. He said, Nectar of Devotion is like a sugar cube. Any part of the sugar cube that you taste is nectar. Therefore, you can read it from any part of the book. There is no question about which part of the book you read. Every part of the book is nectar. He never forbade us from reading different parts of the Nectar of Devotion or from reading Krishna book. He never told us we had to read only this section and not that section. He said, you read the Krishna book every day. Read all the pastimes. He managed to express it in very careful language so that there would be no mistake or misunderstanding. He certainly was concerned about abuses in terms of understanding Rasa Leela. When Devahuti, who was an elderly woman who was his disciple, she was like our mother, our grandmother. She was in her 40s or 50s when we were all 18, 20 years old. And she was an artist, a very good artist, a great painter. And she painted the original Ras Leela painting for Prabhupada that appears in the original Krishna book. And when she originally painted it, she made them look like young teenagers. And she showed it to Prabhupada. She told me the whole story herself, personally. She said, I showed it to Prabhupada. And when Prabhupada saw it, he was very upset. He said, you will have all the young boys and girls thinking that they can dance and do Rasa Leela. I want you to change it. It says in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna was 8 years old and the gopis were 7. They were young persons, and Prabhupada talks about it in the Krishna book, that there is no question of lust involved, that the dance was transcendental, it was spiritual, and that the gopis were expansions of Krishna. Hence, Krishna was playing with his own reflection, like a child playing with a reflection in the mirror. So he gave us all the philosophical language that was required. And he made Devahuti paint all the faces of the gopis and Krishna and make them look like young children again. Because he wanted it to be understood in its pure, innocent, uncontaminated form. There should be no fear or anxiety about reading Krishna book or any part of Nectar of Devotion. Everything that Prabhupada wrote was couched in very careful language for the consumption of people, even the most novice and new persons in the West. An example of this is when Prabhupada is speaking with Bhakta Bill. The story, perfect questions, perfect answers, okay? So he's asking questions. His name is Bill or Bruce, I don't remember now. But anyway, the book is Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. So Prabhupada is explaining to him about rascaldom. He says, sometimes in the world people are rascals. He said, but this rascaldom is there in Krishna. It comes from Krishna. Sometimes Krishna pushes Radharani down on the ground and then forcibly grabs her and kisses her. He's telling this is a brand new person. He works as in in the Peace Corps. He's working in the Peace Corps. And he became attracted, and he comes over and he's hearing from Prabhupada. And Prabhupada tells him this thing. Brand new person. Not even chanting yet. Yes, Krishna throws Radharani on the ground, and he forcibly kisses her. Why is telling such a thing? Intimate thing to brand new man. Why? Because it will purify the lust in the heart. Those who with transcendental faith hear Krishna's pastimes with the gopis of Braj attain parabhakti to him, and thus very quickly become free from the disease of the heart, which is mundane lust. He didn't tell him in the first meeting, but after meeting with him several times, later on in the conversation, when he sees that there's faith, that the person keeps coming to him to hear, because he has faith in Prabhupada, he has faith in what he's speaking. Then when he saw that faith, then he instructed him to further extract the anarthas from his heart. (285) Srimad Bhagavatam further states, Krishna enters into the lotus-like hearts of the bhaktas through the ear and removes all their impurities, just as the autumn season purifies the rivers. Why then should the bhaktas engage in karma if the heart becomes purified by performing bhakti alone? To clarify this point, the present sloka is now spoken. Simply knowing that the Atma is separate from the body does not comprise Gyan. Rather, one is to understand Atma Tattva, the truth of the Atma. The only real Gyanis are those who have taken shelter of such knowledge. But the three constituents of knowledge, namely knowledge, Gyan, the knowable, Gneya, and the knower, Gnatva, this is discussed in the beginning of the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I want to know what is knowledge, who's the knower of knowledge. All these things have been discussed. Now it is being laid out here again by Krishna. So those three things, the knowable, the knowledge, the knowable, and the knower, also have a relationship with karma. To understand, this is the duty of the sannyasis. For this purpose, Sri Bhagavan is speaking this sloka beginning with the word jnanam. Here the word chodana means injunction or process. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami says that the words chodana, upadesha, and vidhi, upadesha means instruction and vidhi means rules and regulations, are synonymous. Now Bhagavan himself is explaining the second half of the sloka, starting with the words karanam karma. Jnana is that which helps us to know something. According to this definition, jnana is the instrument. Gneya, the knowable, Jivatma Tattva, is the object. And one who knows this truth about Jivatma is Gnata, the subject. The instrument, Karana, the object, Karma, and the subject, Karta, are the three factors known as Karma Sangraha that are related to Nishkarm Karma Yoga. This is the explanation of the compound word Karma Chodana. In other words, the performance of Nishkarm Karma Yoga is based on these three: the principle of knowledge, the knowable, and the knower. And now, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes all these points clear. Srila Gurudev, in the end of his commentary, makes the same points. The process which precedes karma is called chodana. Inspiration is the subtle existence of action, and it is the faith that exists in the mind before the gross state of action manifests. The stage which precedes action is divided into three parts. 1, knowledge of the instrument of action. 2, the knowledge of the object of action. And 3, the performer of action. The execution of action has three divisions: Karanatva, the instrument; Karma-atva, the object; and Kartava, the subject. So now they have explained everything here. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes Krishna as saying, knowledge, the knowable, and the knower are the three impulses of action known as karma chodana. And the instrument, karma, the object, the instrument, karna, the object, karma, and the doer, karta, are the threefold basis of karma known as karma sangraha. Whatever action is performed, a person performs, has two states, inspiration and basis. And the process which precedes karma is called chodana. So then he lays out these things. So all of this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary, which is translated by Srila Narayan Maharaj. Now, we go to verse number 19. In accordance with the three modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge, action, and performance of action. Listen as I describe them. The Prabhupada points out in the 14th chapter, the three divisions of the modes of nature were elaborately described. In that chapter, it was said that the mode of goodness is illuminating, the mode of passion is materialistic, and the mode of ignorance is conducive to laziness and indolence. Both. All the modes of material nature are binding. They are not sources of liberation. Even in the mode of goodness, one is conditioned. In the 17th chapter, the different types of worship by different types of men in different modes of material nature are described. In this verse, the Lord wishes to speak about the different types of knowledge, workers, and work itself according to the three modes of material nature. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences, undivided in the divided, is knowledge in the mode of goodness. So, a person who sees one spirit soul in every living being, whether a demigod, human being, animal, bird, beast, aquatic, or plant, possesses knowledge in the mode of goodness. The knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences, undivided in the divided. Undivided it's one in nature, but yet it is divided because there is a soul in each living being. Is knowledge in the mode of goodness. That knowledge by which a different type of living entity is seen to be dwelling in different bodies is knowledge of the modes of passion. The concept that the material body is the living entity, and that with the destruction of the body, the consciousness is also destroyed, is called knowledge in the mode of passion. This is the atheistic scientists. They say like this: once the body dies, everything is finished. There's no consciousness. It doesn't live on. No matter how many times you show them that it does, they don't want to hear it because it doesn't follow their line of thinking. According to that knowledge, bodies differ from one another because of the development of different types of consciousness. Otherwise, there is no separate soul which manifests consciousness. The body is itself the soul, and there is no separate soul beyond this body. According to such knowledge, consciousness is temporary, or else there are no individual souls. But there is an all-pervading soul, which is full of knowledge. And this body is a manifestation of temporary ignorance. Or beyond this body, there is no special individual or supreme soul. All such conceptions are considered products of the mode of passion. So they don't believe in the soul. They don't believe in God. They believe that consciousness is a product of biochemical functions in the brain and neurological activity in the brain. It has nothing to do with the soul or the consciousness expressed from the soul or the subtle body. All of this to them is some phantasmagoria, But this is not an accurate conception. I've explained already so many times how the biochemical and neurological functions that are expressed by the brain are given, those impulses are given from the subtle body, and the impulses come to the subtle body from the consciousness which emanates from the soul. So the soul is there, consciousness emanates from the soul, consciousness gives the impulses to the subtle body, gives the activities to the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, the false ego, and that in turn gives the impulses to the brain, which produces these different biochemicals and neurological activities. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. The knowledge of the common man is always in the mode of darkness or ignorance, because every living entity is conditioned, in conditional life, is born into the mode of ignorance. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or scriptural injunctions has knowledge that is limited to the body. He is not concerned about acting in terms of the direction of Scripture. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. It is more or less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals, the knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Such knowledge is described here as the product of the mode of darkness. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond the body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. Knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is in the product of the mode of passion, and knowledge concerned with only keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So now, Prabhupada, in his purport, defines everything clearly in language that everyone can understand. Now, Krishna continues, As for actions, that action in accordance with duty, which is performed without attachment, without love or hate, by one who has renounced fruit of result, is called action in the mode of goodness. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires, and which is enacted from a sense of false ego, is called action in the mode of passion. And that action performed in ignorance and delusion without consideration of future bondage or consequences, which inflicts injury and is impractical, is said to be action in the mode of ignorance. We see how the people are increasing their desire for material sense gratification. So everyone in the world wants to eat more and more animal flesh. And so they're increasing and increasing the production of animal slaughter all over the world. They're confiscating land that is meant to help with the balance of nature, like rainforests and other places, in order to graze animals, to produce slaughterhouses, and to produce more meat for the pleasure of the tongue. And what is the result of this? The result is that more and more imbalance is coming in nature, more and more misuse of resources, water, grains, and all of the pollution that is taking place on so many levels. All of this is causing actions which are going to destroy the world. This is irresponsible work, and it is meant to destroy the regulative principles of the scriptural injunctions, and it's based on violence and is distressing to other living entities. all of these things. This is called illusion, and it's a product of the mode of ignorance. Other persons who are in the mode of passion are concerned only about money. Action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires, which is enacted from the sense of false ego, is called action in the mode of passion. How can I build bigger and better buildings, make more money through the stock market, through real estate, by artificially causing all of these difficulties? Let me do this, let me do this, let me do this. So like this, these actions out of false ego, satisfying one's personal senses. So this is called action in the mode of passion. But actions which are done in accordance with duty, which is performed without attachment, without love or hate, by one who has renounced the fruit of results, call action in the mode of goodness. The worker who is free from all material attachments and false ego, who is enthusiastic and resolute, and who is indifferent to success or failure, is a worker in the mode of goodness. But that worker who is attached to the fruits of his labor and who passionately wants to enjoy them, who is greedy, envious, and impure, and moved by happiness and distress, is a worker in the mode of passion. And that worker who is always engaged in work against the injunction of the scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, who is lazy, always morose and procrastinating, is a worker in the mode of ignorance. Now, O winner of wealth, please listen as I tell you in detail of the three kinds of understanding and determination according to the three modes of nature. Now, after explaining knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower, in the three different divisions according to the modes of material nature, the Lord is explaining intelligence and determination of the worker in the same way. O son of Pritha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, that understanding is established in the mode of goodness. And that understanding which cannot distinguish between the religious way of life and the irreligious, between action that should be done and action that should not be done, that imperfect understanding, O son of Pritha, is in the mode of passion. That understanding which considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be irreligion, under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction, O son of Partha, is in the mode of ignorance. Here he talks about in the persons whose intelligence in the mode of passion, they always work perversely. It accepts religions which are not actually religions and rejects the actual religion. All views and activities are misguided. Men of passionate intelligence understand a great soul to be a common man and accept a common man as a great soul. Actions which are performed in terms of the directions of the Vedic scriptures are called pravritti, or actions that deserve to be performed, and actions which are not so directed are not to be performed. So this is the mode of goodness. And in the mode of ignorance, they accept religion, irreligion to be religion, and religion to be irreligion. So under that spell of illusion, they create so many foolish activities. O son of Pritha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and thus controls the mind, life, and the acts of the senses, is in the mode of goodness. Yoga means to understand the Supreme Soul, one who is steadily fixed in the Supreme Soul with determination, concentrating one's mind, life, and sensual activities on the Supreme, engages in Krishna consciousness. And that determination by which one holds fast the fruit of result in religion, economic development, and sense gratification is of the nature of passion, O Arjuna. Any person, Prabhupada explains, who is always desirous of fruit of results in religious or economic activities, and whose only desire is sense gratification, and whose mind and life and senses are thus engaged, is in the mode of passion. So we see there are some, they call them abundance ministries. Pray to God. He'll give you all the abundance. Money, and big houses and cars. Pray to God. Get the abundance. This is not real religion. This is only looking for material pleasure. And that determination which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion, such unintelligent determination is in the mode of darkness. Prabhupada says, it should not be concluded that a person in the mode of goodness does not dream. Here, dream means too much sleep. Dream is always present, either in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. Dream is natural occurrence. But those who cannot avoid oversleeping, who cannot avoid the pride of enjoying material objects, and are always dreaming of lording it over the material world, whose life, mind, and senses are thus engaged, are considered to be in the mode of ignorance. They're always looking for these things, These things. Okay. O best of the Bharats, now hear from me about the three kinds of happiness which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to an end of all distress. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. It appears like poison, very difficult. How can I make so many austerities in Krishna consciousness? So it appears just like poison, but in the end it becomes nectar when one regulates the senses and the mind and the intelligence and engages in Krishna's service. Then he realizes, no, these things are for my benefit. Now I'm tasting nectar. I'm tasting happiness, the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. A conditioned soul tries to enjoy material happiness again and again. Thus he chews the chewed. There's that verse in the Bhagavatam. Charvananam, chewing the chewed. Prahlad Maharaj gives the example of the sugar cane. When you take the sugar cane and you press it, and then you chew on it, and you suck the sugar cane juice out of it. In India, they cut the sugar cane into pieces. They may do in South America also, I don't know, or in Florida they do. But in India, they cut the sugar cane. You get little pieces, and you chew on it. And you chew on it, and you suck all the cane juice out, and then there's something left. So if you try to chew on that again and get more out of it, there's nothing to get out of it. So one time, the brahmacharis were trying to understand this. They had not been to India. They were new brahmacharis from America. So my godbrother, he had been to India and he understood what it meant, but he was trying to explain it to them and they couldn't understand it. So then he came up with an idea. He said, it's like chewing gum. You chew on the gum, and then at night you put it on the bed, and then the next morning you try to chew it again, and there's no taste. And then they go, oh, yeah, right, now we got it. Chewing the chewed. Chewing the chewed. Sometimes, in the course of such material enjoyment, the living being becomes relieved from material entanglement by associating with a great soul. In other words, a conditioned soul is always engaged in some types of sense gratification. But when he understands by good association that is only a repetition of the same thing, and he is awakened to his real Krishna consciousness, he is sometimes relieved from such repetitive so-called happiness. In pursuit of self-realization, one has to follow many rules and regulations to control the mind and senses and to concentrate the mind on the self. All these procedures are very difficult and bitter like poison. But if one is successful in following the regulations and comes to the transcendental position, he begins to drink real nectar and enjoys life. That happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects and which appears like nectar at first but poison at the end is said to be the nature of passion. So we see that young men and young women, Prabhupada is giving the example, they meet, the senses drive them to touch and have sexual intercourse. And in the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses, but in the end, after some time, it becomes just like poison. Then they are separated, there is divorce, there is lamentation, there is sorrow, etc. So we see now that this is what marriage is based on in the material world. Simply propelled by lust, they have sexual activity. Then they think, oh, this pleasure will last forever, let us marry. Then they marry. Then after a while, they start to argue. They become unhappy. They see that they're not suited for each other, that the pleasure of the sex is no longer so palatable, and then they divorce. Irreconcilable differences. He's not pleasing my senses. Because the man looks at the woman. Oh, what does he see? He sees what advertising tells him, that a woman is simply breasts and hips. So looking at the woman as breasts and hips, he sees her as an object of pleasure. So when she's treated like an object, then she looks at him as a cash machine. Okay, this man is here to give me money. He wants my breasts and hips, I want his money. So this becomes the basis of marriage. It's all mundane. So eventually that's going to lead to divorce. He's not giving me enough money, she's not giving me enough breasts and hips. So it's all based on this. So in the end, there'll be divorce. But when two young people get married in Krishna consciousness and they engage in devotional service and they serve Krishna together, then the basis of their marriage relationship is good and they'll be happy in Krishna consciousness, and because they're not seeing each other as objects. The man is not seeing the woman as breast and hip, she's not seeing him as a cash machine. They see each other as servants of Krishna, and they engage together in Krishna's service, and everything becomes peaceful. And that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be in the nature of ignorance. So we have now many people, they take intoxication, and they say that they're getting realizations from the hallucinations of using the intoxicants. So this is not self-realization. At best, they may understand they're not the body, but they don't understand who is Krishna, or that one should engage in the service of Krishna. Understanding you're not the body is only the very preliminary thing. Krishna explains that in the first half of the second chapter. Now we're on the 18th chapter. So this information is already over. Knowing you're not the body is only the foundation. Now that you know you're not the body, first thing Krishna teaches Arjuna is you should give up the fruit of your work because it's not yours. You're not the body. You're not the doer. You don't own these things. You don't own the fruits of your activities. You should offer it to me, to Krishna. So therefore, people who are blind to this, they cannot understand anything. They are addicted to sleep, laziness, intoxication, illusion, hallucinations, etc. And they're blind to the real nature of the spiritual activities, and being blind to real self-realization, they're in the mode of ignorance. And Krishna concludes this section by saying, there is no being existing, either here or among the demigods in the higher planetary system, which is freed from the influence of the three modes of material nature. The Lord here summarizes the total influence of the three modes of material nature all over the universe. So that's verse 40. Tomorrow, we're going to start talking about Varnashram. Verse 41, we'll talk about the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Sudras. Then it'll talk about the different qualities of the different Varnas and Ashramas. And it will go on until we reach the conclusion, which is Namana Bhava Mad Bhakto, always meditate on me. Renounce all Dharma, all your Varna and your Ashramas and your Dharmas. Renounce them all. Engage in my devotional service, and I will free you from all sinful reactions. So, do the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita tomorrow night. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama